You're joining me on the updated T-Cross UK launch, and I've got the car for a very short amount of time, so let's take a rapid deep dive and see whether this thing is worth your cash. Gaining a sporty facelift and brand new interior technology, the 2024 T-Cross starts from £23,975, which is a bit pricier than the funky looking Nissan Juke, but way cheaper than class leader, the Ford Puma. Opt for our top grade R-Line and you'll need from £28,565, so this T-Cross, even with its updates, has its work cut out.
But with the changes they brought in for 2024, I think you might want to consider one of these. Let's go.
Alright, let's address the elephant in the room, or should I say duck, because this new yellow paint job is called Rubber Ducky Yellow, as voted for by Brits on social media, and it looks to me like Volkswagen's attempt to edge closer to the more funky vibe of its arch rival, the Nissan Juke. The changes to the bodywork are subtler, with the nose losing its bumper spotlights for a cleaner design, while at the side, the R-Line gains these silver 17-inch alloys, which match the lower window line and roof racks. At the back, the biggest change is the black strip that runs across the bumper, making the car look wider and more muscular.
Now, from behind the wheel, there are some minor but very significant changes to behold in the cabin. Now, firstly, you might have noticed there's a lovely finish in this particular car. This R-Line gets a few tweaks to its look and actually, I think, really lifts the cabin. There's some stitching there you can see on some of the leathers up there, and even the steering wheel is nice and soft to touch. Everything feels really good quality and relatively high standard. Even the plastics up here are a bit squidgy if that's your sort of thing. But more importantly are the technological updates to this kind of stuff. Now, it works much quicker than before. I mean, to everyone who drives Volkswagens, this is going to be extremely familiar, and it's not the bigger stuff you get on the latest cars, including this car's bigger brother, the Tiguan, but it is fast to react and crucially simple to use, and it means when you're driving you're not fumbling around getting confused. You can simply just use the system. There's one minor gripe I have actually while I'm on the maps here, which is that if you're using the nav as I was just now and you want to have the maps displayed here, so maybe your passenger can be a co-driver, and also on here, if I click view on here and then I choose to have the map on the screen, it disappears from there. So you will see that the map has appeared here, which is great. It's a full screen map and you can have it in different modes if you want a bit more information. That's really, really useful, but then it's disappeared from here. And if I click nav or anything, the only way to get it back is to click show map in cluster, but then it goes from here. A minor gripe, but one surely that can be sorted with software. Anyway, at least I'm happy to see we've retained some buttons down here. They are slidey, swipey ones, but unlike other models in Volkswagen's lineup, thankfully they are being updated to have these lights on, but not all of them do yet, and so having illuminated slidey controls is at least a bit better. And I have to admit, because these are down here, they're easier to use than the ones in the later cars and the bigger cars where you've got the slidey control up here. I find that fumbly and annoying. Down here, I don't know, I can kind of live with it. It's also got these indentations, just makes it easier and more tactile to use. Same with the fan speed. So as far as slidey touchscreen controls go, this is probably as good as it gets. Although of course I would still prefer a few knobs. But anyway, this car, as you'll spot, has the automatic gearbox. It's a 7-speed, and we've still got a pair of cup holders down here. And look, a manual handbrake. God, you don't see many of those anymore. It does mean you've not got a bit of space here, but who cares? Manual handbrakes are better. You've also got some storage down there for your phone, and as you'll see, we've got 2 USB-C ports as well. Our car currently having this adapter in, so you can run a traditional USB. And look, even a 12-volt port, if that's your thing. Storage in the middle is pretty small. I'm so used to EVs these days and being able to put my whole arm in there. That's pretty small actually. I mean, what can I get in there? Get my hand in. So it's a hand span deep and obviously as wide as you can see. But crucially, we've got a glove box that is decent in size. I say crucially, no one really cares about them but me, but I make use of that. Same goes for the door bins down here. Now they are really sizable. You could get, if you were in America, I'm sure you get a super size in there, but actually for us, Brits and Europeans, this will easily swallow your keep cups and reusable mugs. Nice interior, very functional, lots of simple buttons, none of that haptic stuff and none of the other slightly more confusing controls. And look, volume dials here as well. So if you don't want to be reaching over here to change the volume, you can do it here, which is nice. And also, this model, including other models in Volkswagen's lineup, will get ChatGPT software added to its infotainment system later in the year, which means you'll get even more functionality and even more ability to control the car using voice technology. So that should be a big boost to functionality. But for now, proper buttons are a big win in my book. I'm also very comfortable up here, and I like that I can see a bit of the yellow paint. It makes it feel more fun and like I've done a good job with my fashion today. Now, as for the back, I have this seat ahead of me set how I like it. So it's in a pretty tricky position, but yet my feet can fit comfortably underneath it, and I've got a decent amount of knee room. This is, of course, a Polo-based car, so it's not the biggest machine in the world, but I've got a good amount of space, I'm comfortable, and I've also got a good amount of headroom above me. Plus, I spot you've got a bit of storage area down here. It's a bit of a weird shape, so I'm not sure you'd put in there, but anyway, something there. 2 USB-C ports as well. There's no vents, so that's going to be a negative if you've got kids or passengers in the back who like their own type of ventilation, different temperatures to those in the front, for example. And also, you don't have a middle seat armrest, which is a big negative in my books, because when I'm in the back seat for a long time, I like to rest my arm on something. So this doesn't fold down, it's joined to this. I'll show you a bit later how that folds down for the boot, but it means you can't put your arm on anything here. But handily, there is a rail down here, and you can slide this whole back seat section back. So if you've got shorter passengers in the back, but you want a bit more boot space, at least you've got that small amount of versatility there. Otherwise, it's a basic back, but comfortable enough. Oh yeah, and I mean, these door pockets, again, are very sizable. They're generous on that, at least. Now, when it comes to boot space, I have to say, the T-Cross initially looks pretty average. I mean, this is a good amount of space. You'll easily get a family-size suitcase on there. But obviously with the added height compared to a Polo as well, there's a decent amount of space up top. If you remove this, it should be comfortable enough for a dog as well. But what's most interesting, and I think most useful, is the depth of this space under here. This in other markets would be a spare wheel. You may even be able to get one from a dealer, I don't know. But certainly in this car and in most cars, it's just a lot of extra storage space, which is very handy. Plus, the boot itself can grow bigger up top if you slide the seats forward, which I will do for you now. It clears up quite a fair bit of space down there, but it's a bit of an inconvenient space. It's a bit of a valley down there, so it's more room, and they can definitely claim that, but obviously it's not the most usable. I've noticed as well, if you lift up this floor, this is quite handy, you can actually fix that floor up there, so it makes it easier to load into there if you've got bags that you want to get into there, for example, or even if you wanted to leave the boot in two kind of configurations, if you had to separate goods. It's quite versatile. And then if you go fully van, well, yeah, you've got a good amount of space. I mean, buyers coming from a Golf or even from a Polo, you're going to see a massive increase in room when you jump up to the T-Cross, especially in this configuration. Okay, now driving the T-Cross, it feels pretty familiar, but there is a key difference that sets this T-Cross apart from not only its sibling and close sibling, the Polo, but also some of its rivals, and that is the fact that it doesn't feel like it's pretending to be a sporty car, and I mean that in a good way.
Alright, admittedly this R-Line model's bigger alloys can make the ride a bit fidgety at times, but overall, the T-Cross is a more forgiving car than some of its firmer rivals, including the sporty feeling Ford Puma. The engine's pretty nippy too, and well matched to this car's 7-speed automatic gearbox, which keeps it on the boil so it never feels underpowered. Case in point,
we've got wheel spin as I put my foot down, but the car's steering is light, it's nice and smooth to pick up, the engine sounds pretty good. Let me give you a bit of that engine. Oh, dare I say it, you even get a bit of a whine that you can hear from the turbo. So it's got a bit of character, even if it's not the quickest thing in the world, but it's more than adequate for your daily drive. Visibility is great, I must say as well. The door mirrors are nice and tall, so it means I can see right back down the road, but also with just a slight lean forward, I can see down to where a curb would be as well. So parking this is going to be very, very easy. And the steering wheel is nice and big. I know a lot of brands, Peugeot in particular, going for that smaller wheel, but having that big wheel in your hands, it takes away the sporty feeling, but it makes the car feel more effortless. It means your steering inputs are actually pretty small. It feels light to steer. The brakes are nice and light. They're quite heavily assisted, so people who come from sportier cars might find them a bit grabby, but for everyone else who likes the light touch and easy driving of a typical Volkswagen, this car ticks all those boxes. Get it up to national speed limit and you can feel that, yeah, there's a bit more road noise with these bigger tyres, there's a bit of wind noise over the door mirrors as well, and this is emphasis on how quiet that engine is. It also helps you drive with your adaptive cruise control, so I can turn it on here, and it's nice and simple, nothing rubbish and annoying. Some brands have their stalks down behind the wheel, this one's all up here, it means it's very easy to control, and so I can set the speed now, as I have, to 54 miles per hour, take my foot off the accelerator, that's just next to it, and the car will just drive along. And I have as well adaptive cruise, so if it catches up to someone going slower, it will slow down, and nice and gently as well, it doesn't hammer on the brakes. As for reversing and visibility, I know that's going to be a big thing, especially if you've got kids yelling in the back. Let's use this nice empty road here, and I'll pull over to this side. Let's do a classic reverse around the corner. There's no one here. I've got a reversing camera, not the highest resolution, but it is okay. Annoyingly as well, those lines don't seem to move when I'm turning the wheel, but You do have parking sensors as well, and as I mentioned, you can see clearly down to the curb. The steering is really light, and I love the fact that because it's an auto, it creeps, so I don't have to worry about clutch control or anything in this car. I'm just letting the car creep and do the driving for me. So visibility is good, and it doesn't feel massive because you're high up. Your vantage point is good, and yet the car isn't massive, so this is going to be an easy car to drive in any UK setting. So first impressions of this T-Cross update are good, although it is still quite expensive, and even with this slightly weirdly named yellow colour, it's still not going to be as interesting or quirky as rivals. But for those looking for a more practical Volkswagen hatchback experience, it's a good option.